Hey, what's up guys? This is me, Nisi of Spoil Me Nisi, back with another video. I hope you're all doing well. I know that Memorial Day weekend is just getting geared up and I hope you guys do have some great plans. So I stumbled across this movie called Blue Miracle, which premiered today on Netflix. I really enjoyed it, so I'd like to give you a brief review of the movie and my reaction to it. If you haven't already had the chance to see Blue Miracle, just to let you know, this video is going to have spoilers as always. So let's get into it. So Blue Miracle is a movie based off of a true story. It's pretty much about a man named Omar who runs an orphanage with his wife. It's based off of 2014 in Mexico. Apparently at that time, well, according to the movie, there were a lot of children, a lot of orphans in Mexico, in the Cabo area. Apparently these kids lived on the streets. They didn't have parents. Some of them never even met their parents. Some of them did, and their parents just, I don't know, disappeared. Very, very sad. So Omar and his wife decided to, take them in and raise them as their parents. So in the movie, they did have quite a few kids. I would say from what I saw, like about 10 kids, in the movie. And the orphanage itself looked kind of run down. It looked as though whatever funding they had was limited. And they were kind of having a hard time because in the movie you see that Omar is ducking calls from the bank. So so that pretty much lets you know that maybe he's behind on whatever mortgage for the orphanage, and his wife does complain about them not having enough food or always having to feed the kids mackerel. So you can see they're kind of like they're doing good, but they're kind of having a hard time. They're struggling in the movie. So they prepare for this big storm that's coming. It comes, it ends up flooding the place. There's a lot of damage to the orphanage. So on top of all the damages they have to repair, they also have to pay the bank, and they're given a limited amount of time to pay, because if they don't, they run the risk of losing the orphanage, which will cause all of those kids to go back out on the street. So from a stroke of faith, they're put in a position where they are in a tournament for these fishermen, and so that they can win a lot of money. They're put on the same boat as Wade, who's played by Dennis Quaid. He's not very happy to have them on his boat, so he's a grumpy captain. And that's pretty much what the movie is about. So my reaction to the movie, I really enjoyed this movie. I think it's cute. I think it's family friendly, and it's not cheesy either. And finding out that it's like a real true story at the end of the movie, they show the main characters, I think that makes it even sweeter. I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed it. So one thing that I enjoyed a whole lot about this movie is I noticed some themes in the movie. So one theme that I noticed is with the main character, Omar. It keeps the movie keeps showing flashbacks of when he was a kid. He had a very traumatic experience when he was fishing with his dad. So the movie constantly has flashbacks about that. And then you notice in the movie, his getting these kids, that's his passion. And a police officer who wasn't very nice brought this teenage boy to his orphanage to speak to Omar because the kid did something bad. And Omar, the kid was not very nice to Omar, but the kid ended up opening up to him. He just kind of had a way with kids because his passion is in taking care of them. And when they talk about all the other kids that are orphans on the street, you can tell that it makes Omar very, very sad. And to me, the fact that he does have a history of being a fisherman. In the movie, he ends up being put in a situation where he has to fish and join a tournament where he's doing that. For some reason, that reminded me of the Bible. So it kind of reminded me of in Matthew chapter 4, verse 18 through 20, and I'll read it just briefly. It says, "And Jesus walked by the Sea of Galilee, saw two brothers, Simon called Peter, and Andrew his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. Then he said to them, 'Follow me, I will make you fishers of men.' They immediately left their nets and followed him." I don't know if the makers of the movie had that in mind. I don't know if it was intentional for it to bring the viewer, back to that verse in the Bible or something. I don't even know if they meant for this movie to even be a Christian movie or a faith-based movie. I'm not 100% sure about that. But I know that Omar's character did remind me of that, because ultimately he was doing good. He had the opportunity in the movie to turn back to some of his old ways where he wasn't an honest person and he was doing things he shouldn't have done. But you can tell in the movie he changed his ways, and he was doing what he felt was his calling, and that was taking these kids off the street, fishing for these orphan kids to come to his orphanage, where he and his wife, all with great intentions, would take care of these kids and raise them as their own children. And I don't know, that just kind of brought me back there. I kind of thought about that during the whole movie. And another thing that the movie made me think about is towards the end of the movie, when everybody kind of seemed to be a little down on their luck. They weren't catching the fish that they were looking for. Some of them were losing faith. Not Gecko, though. The little boy Gecko, he had faith the whole movie. But some of them were losing a little faith. They didn't think that it was meant for them to catch the fish, and they thought they would end up on the street. And Omar thought that he would lose it all. Wade came up with an idea for them to cheat. He pretty much bought a fish from somebody, and he was going to say that they caught it so that they can get the money, so that Wade doesn't lose the orphanage. And Omar had a moment where he was really considering taking Wade's idea and cheating his way to the top, so that he doesn't lose the orphanage. And it's interesting that he toyed with that in his mind, because the kid Gecko, who was very, very close to Omar, he had a lot of faith. He said some prayers in the movie, and they all pretty much came true. And towards the end, he showed Omar a picture that he drew of all of them with a big fish, like they got the big fish. And when they were on their way to the boat, Omar didn't want that kid Gecko to go with them to the boat because he's really small. But the kid said, "No, God told me to come here." It's like God wanted the kid to be there, and the kid went. He obeyed God and he went. And he had faith. And whereas Omar was all stressed out, and when Omar expressed the situation to all the other kids, they had lost faith, they were sad. But that kid Gecko, he wasn't sad. He was pretty much faithful. He wasn't scared at all. At least I didn't pick up that he was scared. So that kind of reminded me of the Bible a little bit, because when you think about in the book of Genesis, when you think about Abraham and Sarah, when Sarah couldn't have children, and she pretty much lost faith in herself having kids. She didn't think that God was going to bless her with a child, and she asked Abraham to lay down with her, I guess, servant, so that he could have a kid with her, so that he doesn't not have kids just because Sarah can't have kids. Abraham didn't want to do it, but she kind of made him do it, so he did it and ended up conceiving Ishmael with the servant. And in the end, Sarah ended up having a baby anyway. And it's just, she didn't wait on God. She had gotten impatient, and she, I guess, forced her husband or talked her husband into doing something. And if they had just waited and held on a little bit longer and had a little bit more faith, they would see that God actually had really great plans for them, and they were going to have a baby. And God even told her that he would give her a child, and they didn't wait. So this movie kind of reminded me of that. Even though I feel like when a person mentions faith and they drop certain little clues, I personally believe that somehow God talks to us in so many different amazing ways. And Omar, you know, even though he was around that kid Gecko, and the kid had the faith that they would catch the fish, he still had that moment of weakness where, you know, he didn't want to be let down. He didn't want to let the kids down. He was really considering cheating. Well, in the end, he decided not to cheat, and he decided to pretty much have faith in God, come clean to the kids, be honest. And he threw that fish that they were going to use to cheat in the ocean. And it's like right after he did that, they ended up catching an even bigger fish, or at least to me, it looked bigger than the one they were going to cheat with. And yeah, so then in the end, they ended up winning, and they ended up winning the honest way. And you know, they just had faith in the end, and they weren't disappointed. So he ended up winning the money. They saved the orphanage, and at the end of the movie, they do show some pictures of like the real story. And you see that he did win, and he was able to fix up the orphanage and get more kids in the orphanage, include girls in the orphanage, and expand it. So that's pretty much what happened there. And I really enjoyed it. If I had to rate the movie on a scale of 1 to 10, personally, I would give it an 8. I really liked it. And the only reason why I wouldn't give it a 10 is because it's really hard for me to give a movie a 10. But you know what? I'll give the movie an 8.5. Because I think there are some aspects where it could have been improved just a little bit. So I would say an 8.5, but that's pretty high. So yeah, if you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend it. If you do like movies that are, I guess, faith-based movies, or movies that are very positive and uplifting and true stories, then I highly recommend this movie. And even if you don't and you're into other stuff, I highly recommend trying this movie. So if you haven't already done so, make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel so that you know when I drop more videos. And in the meantime, peace and God bless.